What's up, guys? This is Alessio from the Dev Experience team at Snap Spectacles, and today we're gonna go through a lot of things, so be ready that this episode is going to be mostly like a podcast. So if you're doing gym or you're cleaning the kitchen, just put it in the background, and we're gonna go through all of the features and all what's possible on Spectacles. I'm also going to touch some important points about documentation and things that maybe you might not know, or if you know already, just skip ahead and just wait for the next one. I'm going to go deep diving in a lot of different topics in the next videos. For example, I'm preparing things like connected lenses, which is a very important topic, and maybe resources, even if we have a lot of samples and documentation, maybe could be nice to have someone that explain you things very directly. But today we're gonna go through a very holistic overview of all of the features available on Spectacles, and then where you can find things based on the feature. So if you go on the Spectacles documentation page, you will see that there is a page named Features. This is a page that we put together not to give you just a list of what's possible on Spectacles from a technical level, but also to give you the resources that are connected to those features. We really wanted to be informative about why you can do AI on Spectacles and what it means. What does it mean AR tracking on Spectacles? For example, in the past, I've been working a lot with a very well-known tool that is named AR Foundation. And if you go on their page, there are all of these feature matrices. But they go very specific into details that as a developer, sometimes you might not really need. You just want to know, so if this feature is possible, how is it going to look like, and where I can start to use it. So this is how we're approaching this documentation. And from here, we will start and we will go through so many different things. So if you go on this page and we start, and just reminding you, we are actually on the Spectacle feature. This is another thing you might take for granted that everyone knows this, but a lot of people are confused between this page, which is the one for Lens Studio only, and this page, which is the one that is specific for Spectacles. So if you're looking for a specific feature and you see it on this page, something you might see around, so let's say for example, you go in 3D and you go in exporting content here, we have a tag system here that allows you to understand if that feature is compatible or not with Spectacles. So if you are on this land of Lens Studio, there is always the chance that something is not supported on Spectacles, of course, because of a very specific device. So what you want to do if you want to just know purely what's possible on Spectacles is just going on the Spectacles page. And if you want a shortcut to understand what's possible on Spectacles, you can just click on Features, and then you can see all of the features here. So let's start with AI, for example. AI, we all know what it is, buzzwords of the moment. We dedicated a whole release to this. You can find directly samples here that tells you what to do and how to do it. So you can access, once again, you can access samples on our GitHub, which is a public repository that includes all of our samples. Or eventually, if you are a fan of something like Lens Studio UI, you will find them into the homepage of Lens Studio. So these are the same things. So very important. And these are other examples. We also connect 3 different resources. The first one is the documentation, the second one is the samples, and the third one is the assets. What are the assets? You might question yourself if you've never been familiar with this environment of Lens Studio. And sorry if you already know all of these things, but with this channel, we are not only targeting only very expert developers, we are also targeting a developer that wants to start with Lens Studio and they maybe have a whole experience in the field and they just want to apply their knowledge to Lens Studio. So skip ahead, there are timestamps, so sorry if something sounds a little bit repetitive. I'm sure that in the future we will do more video that you will find very interesting for a very specific niche. And do not forget that you can always leave a comment and say, hey, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it. How would you do it? And if I have enough requests, of course, I will dedicate a video to that. So if you go in the asset library, that's what I meant to tell you. These are all of the assets. We also have a specific section on the asset library here for Spectacles. So once again, you can go very much into the specific and stay in the land of Spectacles. Again, you might find very interesting stuff in this library. Not everything is easily applicable to Spectacles. Chances are some things are going to just work outside of the box. So why not just running on our Reddit and just make a quick question, or just try yourself and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you just flag it to us. So we're here in Lens Studio, and let's go back on the documentation, because today we're really going to go through everything once again. It's going to be a long video, so be patient and just let it go in the background. What about AR tracking? Well, AR tracking, there are a lot of features which are the one that a developer expects. If develop things with augmented reality, you expect to have a gesture tracking, you expect to have world tracking planes, which we also call world query model, and I'm going to explain what it is. You're going to expect an object tracking, a face tracking, point cloud, market tracking, and so on. So I'm going to go through, these are quite important models. So I'm just going to go through very quickly through all of them. For the gesture model, you're going to be starting with something like this. So this is still in the spectacles realm. There is a lot of documentation in terms of the API that you're looking at, and this is the gesture model API. There are some samples and things like that, but if you ask me, when you want to see how does that gesture works, what you're gonna do is just going on Lens Studio and then maybe try to use the best template with examples. So when you just click on it, this is gonna load for a second, and it's just gonna open for you the examples of SIK, or the Spectacle Interaction Kit, which allows you to access to all of the hand tracking feature. And another thing I want to mention, because sometimes I have some questions, hey, I want to just put a cube on my finger, attach a cube on my finger, or I want to get the position on my finger. There's no better way to get position and transport to expose actually all of those objects. So you don't even need to, if you want to, you can always reference it via code, but look at this, like you have every joint just exposed for you in the hierarchy. So if you want to attach something real quick, you can also do it. And there is not the need to just, in other SDK, I had to just subscribe to specific events and do stuff like that. Instead, you have exposure to all of the joints. You can just attach stuff, and you can see that also the hands are here. So you will see, you have one-to-one understanding of what's going on. This is the SIK, by the way, which is a Spectacle Interaction Kit, where you can just do stuff like manipulating, grabbing, and just experiment with more examples. For the world tracking planes, when you click on this, we will go in the Lens Studio realm. So this is more of a dump of resources. What you actually need to know about world tracking and world planes is the use of something called world query model. The world query model is very specific to spectacles. It really, how it works is in this GIF. You will be able to raycast it to the world around you and just place objects. There is also a variant of this in the asset library, and it's called, let me go in here, and it's called surface placement. So I also got this question a lot of times. What's the difference between world query model and surface placement? Well, surface placement is the same thing as world query model, but it's just optimize and filter out all the noise that you might have of very irregular world meshes, and it just gets you the vertical and horizontal surfaces. So it's more of a filter that allows you to nicely place things in the environment. Let's give it a shot. So you get a sense of what's going on, what I'm telling you. Let's say that I just imported the surface placement. What does it mean in terms of having things in Lens Studio? So let's just turn off the examples here for a second, and let's go in our simulated environment, and we go in the packages that we have the surface placement. Then you will notice that there is an example here. We can just drag and drop it into the scene, and then we're good to go. We can just make use of it. It's very informative. It says pinch and drag to move. So you're gonna just go in here. We just found a surface. We're gonna just pinch and then instantiate one prefab here. This also works if you go in vertical surfaces. So we're gonna go in here and we change them vertical, and we just look at the wall, we click, find an empty space on the wall, drag to move, and then we're good to go. So just what you, in terms of plane detection and things like that, that's basically how I would think of going for if you need something like that. Let's go on object tracking. Object tracking is a model which is recently being updated for spectacles in the terms of creating SnapML pipelines. And here, this is a topic that interests to a lot of people, so I'm gonna just go into a little bit more on the details of what's possible in here. So as you see, when I clicked on that link, I go back on Lens Studio. And Lens Studio has a very comprehensive guides of so many examples of object tracking, so on, market tracking, multiple object tracking, and so on. But this is not specific for spectacles. Good thing, thank God, things are not that different for you. So if you actually go in our samples in here, if you go back in Lens Studio and you go into the asset library, oh no, sorry, not the asset library, but the homepage, you're going to find something like this. You're going to find an example which is called SnapML Pool, SnapML Chassis, a SnapML Starter. So we highly recommend to take advantage of the technology that runs on these glasses in terms of building object tracking on device. We previously had an example where you could actually build object tracking remotely, but it's really not performant in terms of need a Wi-Fi to actually recognize things that are very much easily recognizable on the glasses locally. So that's the magic of also this hardware. So object tracking is possible really through this pipeline that allows you to train your model and deploy on the Lens Studio level an ONX file. If you think that's something that intrigues you and you would like to know more about this, we actually have a full section called SnapML on Spectacles, explain you everything. And we also have those samples that I showed you previously. And we also have a YouTube tutorial where actually I personally explain you how to do everything. So that's something that we really worked hard to put together, and there are crazy stuff happening on our Reddit. So let me just go on the Reddit real quick because I want to show you something that I've seen some days ago. I think the video is still up. Look what I'm crediting the creator here, SDS Pano, and look what happens here. He just find all of the ads and just place objects in that direction. Like this demo, it's a demo that makes you think a lot. It's quite impressive. And by the way, taking also the opportunity to tell you about our Spectacles Reddit, which is a page where everyone shares stuff and we help all of the developers. We're very active. Of course, some questions might be things that you don't get right away, or some questions are more of a feature request actually than a question. So we gather all of that feedback and we just drop it into knowledge of our internal teams, and they will work in that direction if the request makes a lot of sense with all of the developer consensus. So object tracking. If you're looking for object tracking, really what you have to do is looking into the SnapML pipeline. So that's what I would recommend. Otherwise, what you can do is something a little different. Using AI, you can always understand what's your surrounding, so on. Face tracking, same thing actually. We have also this is a topic that multiple people asked about, and I think what you want to look into is something called head anchor. So let's go actually into here and let's go into head attached 3D objects. So this is actually the best bet for head anchoring on face. I see it working very well in some hackathons. There are students that actually got away so much with this asset. It tracks frame by frame, so what you want to do is basically smooth it. But we are planning really to provide more example for this feature because it's a big request from developers. So it would be also amazing to do something that takes into consideration blend face and expressions and things like that. So it's definitely on our timeline, just a matter of time. But if you are trying to do something with add attached objects, this is the way to go. We have point clouds. That also is something that we see here. This brings you a little bit in our lens scripting API. By the way, taking also the time to tell you about this. So if you want to just skip, let's say, the pages that you see here and you just want to go to code directly, usually we include a lot of code snippets, but if you want to just go directly to see all of our API from a lower level, you can just literally go in there and just click on lens scripting API. This is the page that we are indexing on Cursor, if you remember last tutorial that we had. And also we have the same story for the studio editor. So if you want to also use editor scripting, that's the way to go. Yeah, let's go back in features, AR tracking, market tracking. Actually, this one is a good one because we have a good example of this on our asset store. So this won't make you really get crazy. We are just gonna go in here and download basically from the Spectacles section the market tracking helper. I also have a video about this market tracking helper, how to use it, and really just like some live demos that shows you what is this about. And it's always in my channel, so you can go check it out. But this is a pretty easy ask, so we have it ready for you. Let's go back on features. For animations, this is something that a lot of developers ask about in terms of animation timeline, and you have the comparison right away with Unity, that you have a timeline where you can have frames from one part to the other one. Of course, it's something on the pipeline, but on Lens Studio, this is not like Unity entirely. So my suggestion is to use this asset that is called LS Tween, which you also can find on our asset library. It's here, this LS Tween example. Let's just install it to give you a sense of what it does. I also have, by the way, a video about LS Tween because it's something that a lot of developers use. You're just gonna go in here and you're just gonna drag and drop an example. So you see a little bit of like the workflow, how it is. I also do this because I want you to understand how just to navigate the environment a little bit. We have the example of LS Tween. Let me see if I can find the guys here. There you go. So we have these two primary shapes here, and we have some example of how to script animations. If you ask me, I used animation in Unity initially I used animation for very specific things. If you're trying to build things that are embedded and you're trying to do very simple things like rotation, move from position A to position B, I think this actually allows you to do these things very quickly, almost more quickly than actually trying to use the animation. We are aware that maybe it's not the most accessible feature in terms of animating something, but it's really straightforward. Go check out my video. And also we are in line for, of course, providing more resources regarding this one. So if you are interested in animating with no-code utilities. And please comment and let us know what you want to see, because that's very important for us to understand what to prioritize and work on. In terms of audio and spectacles, we included in the audio features. Let me go in the page in here. So you might see this page already in the API, in the spectacle feature page. We have a low power mode, low latency mode, and input profiles. If you want to have some understanding of how to use audio in terms of microphone, we also have a sample which is called voice playback. So this is a nice sample that explains you how to use audio. You basically, in this example, you're recording your voice and then you're playing it. It's very straightforward. It really helps you to get a sense for how to use audio in spectacles. And then we go, we have many. This video is going to be pretty long, but I'm gonna try to make it short and just not keep you here. Also things that maybe are not fully relevant. Bitmoji, unfortunately, is something that a lot more related to the Snap setup. There are definitely some effort in converting all of this in something more of a spectacles format. You actually can eventually refer to your Bitmoji. You can actually import it into your scene and things like that, but it's something that is more related to Lens Studio, and I assume, let me see, you can always import your Bitmoji 3D. This is here, and this is part of the asset library. You can actually reference your Bitmoji 3D and do things like that. But a very common question I get from developers is, hey, if I just input my voice audio, can the Bitmoji actually animate directly from my voice? That's not happening at this time. So you're gonna probably trigger some animation based on your personal conditions. That's also a very interesting take. Is something that definitely I can see coming next in the future, or if you're super interested, please let me know, and we also put it as a priority. As you can see, there are a lot of stuff here that we are trying to do, so bear with us and really just help us to understand what you want now. So camera here, camera module, of course, super important module. I would say that we covered you very well with camera access, camera module, depth module as well, so very important. We also offer a API that really re-enters in that realm of object tracking or environment tracking, which you can not also receiving normal color frame, but you also receive depth frames, which is amazing, right? Because you can understand a lot of things about your space around you, and you can see the implementation of depth actually in a lot of examples that deal with SnapML and AI generally to just see things in space. So this is a very magical way to use augmented reality. I would say probably one of the most important features. Connected lenses, we have a lot of examples for connected lenses, which you might know already as a multiplayer model. We call it connected lenses, and there are a lot of samples. As you can see, we have 5 samples available on our repository. These are very easy to see and to set up. So actually, I want to just go briefly and open connected lenses project to show you how easy is this. Let's go in here and open up connected lens. Let's do the usual tic-tac-toe and save. This is a topic that I really want to tackle in a single video, by the way, so stay tuned for next videos. Connected lenses, as every multiplayer model, has a lot of knowledge to digest, to use them and start to build your project. There are a lot of concepts you need to be familiar with. So here there is a deep dive, which is talking about the Spectacle Sync Kit, which is the kit that power the multiplayer mode or connected lenses. And there are a lot of things that you might want to change or modify. So I guess understanding very well the architecture of all of these models, it's very important. So we're going to do this in some of the next videos for sure. Going back in our little examples here that I just wanted to show you, whenever you download connected lenses module, your Lens Studio UI will be slightly different. As you will see, you will have 2 previews, which are supposed to indicate the 2 different players. And every one of the previews will have just the starter screen, which is just the multiplayer versus single player mode. And let's try to see what's going on here. So if we go multiplayer, we're gonna scan our room in here, and then we're all set. Then once again, we have this and our spaces are aligned, and you will see this on the glasses. So it's actually very nice to try this on the editor as well. As you see, it's very clean and it's very easy to understand what to do. Like here, the rule of these samples is basically every time that player 1 touch the object, another object instantiate and only player 2 can touch it, so on. That there's this little example of concept of ownership. I own the object so I can interact with this object. You own the object so you can interact with this object. This is a very nice example. I think this example, if you're studying it in depth, it brings you really far, like many other ones that are there. So this is really connected lenses, super easy. Took me a second to set up, and it's just working. This also has the same speed on glasses, and you can just play with it and see what you want to do. All right, connected lenses, then we have graphic materials and particles. I would say here you can do a lot of stuff with graphics, materials, and particles if you want to go in depth and do stuff and do experimentation. But the first thing I would do if I were you, I would just try to go on the samples repository and use this material library sample that have some shaders. In Lens Studio, by the way, you can also have shaders and material libraries. So let's say that we want to open a specific shader here. We just open the plastic shader. You're going to have something like this that maybe in Unity you see it slightly different. It's not called material editor, it's called graph, but it still works in this way. So eventually, if you understand a little bit how this works, you're capable of making crazy materials. So highly recommended if you are that shader person that is super into materials and stuff. Like, this is a very nice editor that allows you to go in and really modify. You can also build, you can also code in these nodes here. It's not just like a UI, and allows you to customize and do things for materials. I also included Gaussian splat here and things like that. I feel like actually there is a very nice, I don't see spectacles here, so careful. Even if I've seen some, I actually saw some demos around. Don't want to bring you fake news, but I think I saw some Gaussian splats on spectacles. Don't take my word too much, but I think something like that, I've seen it in the past. Another thing that maybe is not entirely, we have it here. So I just wanted to mention the spatial image gallery, because it's also a very impressive example in terms of materiality and just turning 2D images into 3D. That's why I was thinking of Gaussian splat. So if you ever want to try the samples here and see how this works, is also very well explained. There is some depth calculation, and I need to make sure about the Gaussian splat thing, but I'm pretty sure you can do it somehow. Anyway, all right, as I was saying, I remember that someone did it. So here we have new spectacles with Gaussian splat, and this was 9 months ago. So yeah, it's possible. Let's go back on features. Location AR. So there are some models that are still in the work, like we saw before, the Bitmoji avatar, maybe the animation, but there are those models that are very strong, and one of them is definitely location AR. In fact, location AR come with a spectacles navigation kit, which you can understand how to use it here, and we have plenty of samples for you to start with. A little bit of an understanding of these examples. There is the outdoor navigation, there is the custom location, and then we have a navigation kit, which is a mix of these two features for outdoor. So let me explain you a little bit what's the difference between all of these. The difference is that custom location is something that is more for interior and allows you to scan a group of locations, and then group of locations are matched together, and then there's a very strong series of points that spectacles, when it gets to that specific location, try to recognize and match. This is the custom location template. So for this reason, it's very strong on indoor location like my room or your room, where there is a limited amount of information that are stitched together, and the glasses understand if that's the same location or not, and then you can place your content. For the instead, outdoor navigation, you have a whole GPS stack, technology stack, which allows you to, of course, understand where is your heading and where is your location in the map for glasses. And then also guides you through location. So a real navigation, what you could use with other products, right? You use to Google or whatever. So this is just really how navigation works. Navigation kit takes what I just said and then put them together for having a lot more reliability when you're getting to some location. No matter where. So you're going to a place in the city where you are looking for a specific document, for a specific monument, sorry, and you just arrive into that location, then you do what you were doing in custom location before, but outside. So it's very strong. I recommend you to give it a shot. I also have a demo video that explains you how to use custom locations. So that would be probably enough to understand how to use it. I also have a video on my channel that shows you how to build a script that allows you to instantiate object on specific GPS locations. And we also have the new navigation kit also include that utility a lot better than the one that I built at that point. So there is a very strong offer in terms of door experience because we want you to be outside. So that's the way to think about new technology. Let's go back in our Spectacles features. Oops, this is the same kit. Internet. So you can, even here, I think I want to try to answer a question that is, when is considered an application experimental and when it's not considered experimental? And what does it mean experimental, right? So if you go on the internet access, we have a bunch of examples for performing HTTP requests, accessing remote media, downloading image from URL, internet availability, and so on. So you can definitely navigate on the internet in your application. That's for sure. The thing is, of course, if you are using the internet module, meaning that you are probably interfacing with third parties that are not part of our network. So it's hard for us to give full checkbox and say you can publish your application on the Lens store. In this way, we actually recently went through a whole redo of this offer for internet because, of course, a lot of developers were like, very cool, but we can actually not publish anything because of this rule, right? In fact, if you go in here and take a look, it says accessing the internet in a lens will disable access to privacy-sensitive information in that lens, such as the camera, frame location, and audio. For testing and experimental purposes, however, extended permissions are available to access both camera and open internet at the same time. So if you use internet and other features like camera, mic, and things like that, your application is flagged as an experimental. And this is really, in terms of privacy, what we are thinking about. But something you should know about this way, how we handle the internet in your application, is really something new called Remote Service Gateway. And how does it work? I'm gonna just give you an example here in Lens Studio. Once again, guys, very long video, I know. Stay tuned, stay there. I told you, just drop me there in your background, take a shower, and that's it. And so, Remote Service Gateway, what is it? So we offer a set of API that can be used alongside your user-sensitive data. So what I said before actually can be done legally, and you can publish your lenses on the Lens Store or Lens Explorer. But the way to do it is really like this. So let's go in Lens Studio again, and let's go in our home, and let's try to open one of the AI project. Actually, AI Playground is probably the best starter for AI as it includes a lot of different examples. When you open the sample, you get a very nice warning that says set your API token in the Remote Service Gateway, credential component to use in the examples. And then we have a nice reminder here that says, hey, we have something here, you need to put your token. So how do I do that? Let's go in the asset library, let's go into the Spectacle section, and you will find this asset called Remote Service Gateway Token Generator, which, guess what, it generates tokens. So 1 + 1, let's see how to use it. Whenever you import this one, make sure that you import it. I don't think it's been imported actually correctly. Or maybe it imported as a plugin. Let me just double check. Yes. So whenever you import it, if it imported successfully, you will see on the window menu in Mac, I think it's the same for Windows, but I'm not entirely sure. But you will see this option that says Remote Service Gateway Token. When you click on it, you will get a nice window here where you need to generate the token. And whenever you generate, you will get a nice token that you will copy and then paste in your Remote Service Gateway credential. So now we have it in there. And as you will see, the event callback just remove from our view that warning because we actually satisfied that requirement. We also gonna test this right now together. So let's just gonna turn on the microphone like this. We can use my microphone, make sure that the audio here is actually active. You can see that there is this little icon with the blue volume line that is going up and down, so I assume that it's working. And let's make a request, so let's generate something here. Hey, generate a plate of pasta. Now I went with a very easy request, and let's just make it work here. And let's also generate a 3D example in here. So this is very magical as a feature. Here you go, the stereotype. We generated a beautiful image, and this image is part of our application. Now, let's go in here and let's generate something else. So now that we generate a plate of pasta as an image, we're also gonna generate its respective 3D model because it's something that you have to do. So let's do it. Generate a plate of pasta. All right, we got our amazing 3D model. Look at that. Incredible. With texture and everything. So this is something that you have right away in Lens Studio. It's quite empowering sample, if you ask me. Let's go with OpenAI and look down and orb to activate. So let's give it a shot to this one. Hey, what's up there? I'm actually doing a tutorial for everyone that is interested in Lens Studio. Quite impressive, if you ask me, what you can do and everything it really set up for you. And I hope you understand the difference between experimental API and not. Peripheral control. So peripheral control or controllers basically, right? In fact, we can go into our documentation and take a look at the motion controller module. The motion controller module with spectacles is a module that comes with your phone. So you have a companion. If you never use spectacles, when you get them, you have a companion app that allows you to do updates, allows you to launch applications and a lot more stuff for if you access to developer settings. Here you can see that we are using it as a holder for Rocket, and this is also used in other examples. For example, something I want to bring up with you is the public speaker example, which is a full teleprompter that we actually use the GDC to go through all of the features of Lens Studio in our presentation. How does it work? This, I take also the chance to explain a little bit about the samples. These samples allows you to have a teleprompter with your glasses. And the cool thing about this template is not really just teleprompter fact, which is very interesting because you can access information in a way that probably wouldn't be possible otherwise. But the fact is that you have very different ways to just go previous and next with your slides. And the slides, by the way, can also be hooked up to your Google slide presentation if you really want to. Or if you want to just have them statically there, you can just use the version that there is in the app, which has static slides. But whenever you use the pad, like the Spectacles app comes with a touchpad. And this touchpad is really just like a mapping from 0 to 1 in all the directions. And so in this case, what you can do is just use that and say, when I touch here, it's going to do this. When I touch there, it's going to do that. And these, of course, can apply to thousands of use cases. But in this case, we apply to turning previous and next slides. And it's a great use case, which is the one of the teleprompter. In this example, we have a lot of different ways to just interact with the slides and go previous and next. We also have a soft controller button, which is basically a poke button. We also do it through voice control, and we also do it through mobile controller, voice controller, and mobile and button. So 4 different ways to just interact with your presentation eventually, which is pretty cool. So we provide you all of the examples for you to start from. Persistent storage is basically allows you to keep things in your environment. So best case scenario of this would be that you just locate all of your elements in your room, and then you just turn off the glasses, and then when you come back in there, all of the objects are still in the same position and still in the same place. How does it work? Well, you just drop the stuff in there, and then of course there is going to be a step of this application where your space is mapped and then is remapped to see if there is a match. So pretty straightforward and very similar to what we saw before with custom location. All right, we're almost at the end. Then we have physics. What about examples for physics? So with physics I intend like force, raycast, collision, and here we touch on something called work query model. Work query model is, as I mentioned before, it's a raycast that just hit the world mesh, and whenever you hit the world mesh, you have hit points, so you can instantiate things, or you can do anything else. We also have an example which is took away from the public speaker repository, which was the teleprompter we just showed, and we isolate that example in this other sample called Essential, where you find so many different little utilities that you will use for your application. If you go in the folder which is called Physics Collision, you're just going to find the soft press controller model, the software controller button, which is the one that I showed previously in the public speaker project, but you find it just isolated as a poke button that you can just use like that. And I also have a video on my channel regarding that specific topic. Snap ML machine learning, probably one of the most exciting topic personally. This is really related to object tracking, but we just divided from the object tracking because it's very specific pipeline for spectacles. So you can go on this page to start and get a little bit of an understanding. But if you want to go deeper and you want to understand how to use it, we have a full tutorial on the Snap AR YouTube channel where I explain you all of step by step what you have to do for using your own models. Two very particular steps in this sample. The first one is we are preparing our dataset with RoboFlow. So RoboFlow allows you to go on something called RoboFlow Universe. And RoboFlow Universe is a big database of databases. It's basically a Google where you find all of these databases that people put together in something like license, plate recognition, face detection. So if I ever do something about face detection in the future through SnapML, this is probably something that I will look into, or something like that, so on. You could really go crazy in here. There are so many things that make me think of really crazy lenses. Like I saw, for example, once there was a database about rock climbing and indoor rock climbing. So I was wondering how could it be a game that takes advantage of actually recognizing all of the colors on a rock climbing wall. I think that would be super cool. I hope that someone build it. This is for sports, so on. So a lot of very cool stuff that I also have been looking in the past. Then, as I mentioned, we have very impressive samples. When I say impressive, it's because every time that I see this one, look at this, it's tracking all of the balls on a pool table, and something that I've never seen personally before. It really impresses me how things are running now, and this can just get better. Even if there is a little bit of jitter, it's something that definitely I already know what to do, how to get rid of it. Alright, we're almost at the end of these features. So spatial anchors are very much what we described before, with persistent storage, And the sample that we just talked through again is really the same. We just differ these two concepts because storage is the storage on the device, and spatial anchors is of course the concept of that storage that informs the position of an anchor in space. So that's something just slightly different, but it's still part of the API of Spectacles. So we have a full overview here of how things work and so on. And you have also this package that is without the need to actually look into the samples. You can find this package on the asset library. Then finally, we have the spatial image. We also have a sample for the spatial image. If we go on the documentation, you understand right away what it is. It's basically turning your 2D images into 3D immersive images through depth estimation. And you can see that there is explained the whole how does it work and how does it change when you just move from one direction to another one. But it's very impressive. I tried it on glasses multiple times. It's very impressive. I really like it. And I think we are at the end of all of these feature showcase. I want to just briefly, before to close everything, go through another section, which is the one of the APIs. If I were to start with Spectacles from scratch, this is really the first thing I would look into to just get a little bit of a overwhelming overview of everything that is possible before to make any choice of what my project is going to look like. And then I would also look into this API drop down because there are so many interesting stuff that are related to what I just said. So going briefly through all of them, the ASR module replace what before was called Voice ML. So please, if you have Voice ML in your project or you think to use it, please use actually ASR, which is a lot more reliable. This API offers support for transcription for 40 plus languages. It's very fast and it works very good, and it's the one that we're using for all of the language application that we're building. Bluetooth API allows you to plug into Spectacles, some devices, and we also have some samples for that. So once again, you can find them on the Lens Studio homepage, or you can just go into the GitHub homepage. And you will find it in the Bluetooth Low Energy section. So you have these two samples. You can just click on one of them and just understand what they do. This one feels magical because it actually changes the light of some smart devices around you. This is a one-to-one connection with a virtual and a digital object. So really a lot of possibilities. Camera model, I'm not going to go through again because we saw it previously, but here there are some code snippet. Custom location, we talked about it. Depth model, we talked about it. Gesture model also. Internet also. Keyboard, if you wonder, I want to have a keyboard in my application. Well, that keyboard is a keyboard at an OS system level. I think that's a great idea because otherwise every application would have a different keyboard, and probably you don't want that. You want some control in design. So this is the way it works. You can invoke it and then you can use the text for the keyboard. We also have a leaderboard, big request from developers. We actually enhanced this page very recently with an asset that you can find online in our asset library, and there are all of the example. Since this is something that has been requested a lot, actually let me go and do this real quick, because I know that a lot of people asked about the leaderboard, and I just want to go through it for a sec. Let me go, let's do base template. I think actually we need the examples because there are some parts of the examples in my don't save. All right. So if you want to do something with a leaderboard, you must know some things. You're gonna go on the asset library and go on the spectacle section. You will see all of this nice little utility. And the one that you want to get is leaderboard. When you import the leaderboard package, a nice leaderboard prefab will be waiting for you. And whenever you import it, everything is ready. Something to know about leaderboard is that leaderboards are working with your Snapchat account and your Snapchat account ID. So whenever you're going to try things into the Lens Studio environment, things actually will work only with mockup data. So if I say create leaderboard, you will see things like that. If you do submit score, you see random stuff like that. This is expected, it's not a bug. And it's expected because, of course, if you think about how leaderboard works, you can just submit your score as your account. So you need to be on the device with your account logged in, and then you can actually submit a score. And you will be able to retrieve scores from a leaderboard that exists or create simply a new leaderboard with a different name. So just those foundational things that you need to know if you're using the leaderboard. These full examples allows you to understand how to work with this. We also have reference to all of UI components, so you don't have to do it. And you can just go through, read the code, and also switch the way we are retrieving the leaderboard. Because in here, this example, as you see the steps, what to expect, you build your lenses, then you create a leaderboard with a random name will be generated. So we are creating also a random name. You might not want a random name. Then click on submit score. The score will be submit to this leaderboard that you created. Then you load if you repeat the same again over and over. So you create a new leaderboard and then you try to retrieve it. The previous one actually will be retrieved. So this is just a demo for you to understand how to do things. Of course, if you want to bring things to the next level, you might need to change some line. But if it's of interest, it should be pretty straightforward. But if it's of interest, let us know and we are there for you. Location, we also went through this one. Motion controller module, we also went through this one. Remote service gateway, I hope you understood what this is and why it's very important. We are not limiting the supported service to these providers. Actually, we are also waiting for you to tell us what you want to see on the remote service gateway. Just consider this as your safe bridge toward services that you want to include in your application that you want to be published. Spatial anchor, spatial image, WebSocket examples. So WebSocket examples, it's part of the internet model. If you want to see some crazy WebSocket example, my suggestion is going to our pull request and take a look at spectacles to Unitree samples. I know, crazy. This sample made by Hasidak Main, or also normal life name Patrick, is a crazy example that allows you to hook up your Unitree, if you have one, to spectacles. And this is quite a crazy implementation of WebSocket because it works very reliably. And we tried this in multiple instances in different hackathons. And this implementation, it's all done for you. And I hope that you can also get some inspiration for your use cases. If you don't know what's a WebSocket and you're just approaching the spectacles environment, let me give you just 1 second explanation. WebSockets are usually made for some communication between two entities continuously. Because usually you have just an API call and you just call something. So you say, just do this request to ChatGPT and then you get something back. That is the answer. So it's just one move back. But for things that are actually more structured, like the real-time voice API that we saw in the AI playground, or for example, you want to have a constant going back and forth with the Google slide. So you want to have a constant communication because you want to have things very performant and fast. This is the way to do it with the WebSocket. So we have a API that allows you to do that. And you can just go see all of the samples in here. There are very simple examples to get you started, both in TypeScript and JavaScript. We always try to provide things in both languages because we know that there are people that are still very much using JavaScript, but we always try to bring things to TypeScript because it's a lot easier to debug. That's really the only reason. So if you want to get to that one, this is the page for you. Then we have also a WebView model or a WebView example that you can download also from the asset library. It's called WebView here, and you can download your web viewer and you're going to be able to do things like go on the internet. And we also have a WebView. I think this is what I used in the SnapML starter for doing this example where we shift our UI to left and right or up based on if we detect a monitor or not. All right, so we did the most general YouTube video. I hope it wasn't too general for you that wants to go into the specifics of a very specific topic for spectacles. Please comment and let me know what you want to see in particular. I think my next goal is doing something with connected lenses because it's something that I want to take a look at, and I heard a lot of developers that are doing great, just like downloading the samples and do things with the sample, but they want to make modifications sometimes, and it gets very difficult to understand where to touch code or not to touch code and so on. So I think probably the next video are going to go in that direction, but I hope that this kind of allowed you to the goal of this video was really like for a person which is familiar with the subject but is not familiar with the Lens Studio / spectacles environment, and I hope you had a whole understanding of what's possible in this device. I hope you give it a shot, and let me know if you want to see more of this in the comments or other things specifically. Peace and thank you.